Good afternoon. This recording is for those who missed our church service. Our church service was canceled today. It's pretty icy outside, and I was hoping that the video recorder would work when I gave the message that went on the radio a couple hours ago, but we had difficulties with the video recorder, so we had no live video, but we did have the radio. I decided for those who rather watch than listen to, I know it's not the same. I know I'm not in church. This is my kitchen, and welcome to my kitchen. This is our fireplace, pictures. With the Zoom, you probably can't see it, but this is a sign I love, my mom's sign. It's a house is not a home without an Airedale. Achilles and Maggie, they love that sign. So does my mom. But I have pictures at a battlefield in Yorktown, and got the Thorman's picture, family that we love in Cincinnati. I want to welcome you to my kitchen, and no, it's not the same as church, but this is the same sermon that I gave in church. I just want to provide it to those who rather see a video instead of just listening on the radio. As many of you know, this past Friday was my birthday. I'm now 36 years old. In the morning of my birthday, I weighed 235 pounds. When I went to bed that night, I weighed 246 pounds. That's the 11 pounds I gained just on my birthday. In my opinion, that represents a good birthday. Aging is something that we can't avoid as long as we're living. The old saying goes that death and taxes are the two certainties in life. I disagree. Some of us may not pass away by the time Jesus comes. Nobody knows when Jesus is going to come back. Perhaps all of us won't pass away before He returns. But we will all age. 15 years ago, I never thought that at the age of 36, I wouldn't have a wife or children. And I had a plan. Whether my wife gave birth to a son or daughter, I was going to train my son or daughter to be an NFL field goal kicker. The way I see it, that's the easiest way into the NFL. Imagine how good an NFL football kicker would be if from an early age he or she learned to kick field goals with a football instead of soccer balls. See, most NFL kickers are ex-soccer players who had to go from soccer balls to footballs. Imagine how good they would be if they just trained their whole life with footballs. It's a great plan. NFL kickers don't get hurt that often. They have long careers. They're very vital parts of their teams. The way I see it, in 10 years of being in the National Football League, my son or daughter would have enough resources to give my wife and I a mansion on the beach. I'm joking in part, but seriously, our dreams and ideas about how our future will play out, well, they don't always pan out. I think most of us have what I would consider unfinished business. Maybe the unfinished business is reaching for a personal goal of some kind, perhaps a physical goal, a health goal, a financial goal, an educational goal, a career goal. Maybe there's something we really feel like we need to do, maybe end a conflict we have with someone we love, perhaps ask for forgiveness. Maybe there's something we always wanted to do. Maybe say something to someone. And the truth is that the older we get, the more unfinished business that we have to leave behind. Certain goals, visions, and plans, desires, over time we lose the opportunity to do these things. That's one of the reasons why each day is precious, and we need to make each day count as much as we possibly can. There may be something that we really want to do, we feel like we should do. And we may be able to do that certain thing now, today, this year, but God only knows. Next year we may find ourselves in circumstances that make it impossible for us to do that thing. Each year we may lose more opportunities to achieve certain goals and dreams that we have for our lives. More things we have to leave behind. That's life. Sometimes the unfinished business or the loss of opportunities to do certain things may cause us to grieve, to feel sad, or to feel unfulfilled. And that's a horrible feeling unfulfilled. And sometimes when we look at where our life is compared to where it could have been had we made different choices, Or had we been luckier or smarter? Or had others not slighted us somehow? It may cause us to live with regret or with negative feelings, and we may always be focused on the big what if. What if this would have happened instead of what really did happen? Let us remember that's true. As we get older, different doors to different opportunities close as we age to certain dreams and plans. But let us always also remember that new doors open. Each day, new doors open. God opens up opportunities for us to do His work and to touch people each and every day. Now, whether we take advantage of those opportunities is a different story, but He gives them to us. Most of the time, it is so very uncomplicated to touch somebody. We make it complicated. We make it harder than it is. But praying for someone, really listening to someone who's sad, hurt, or bewildered, doing something nice for someone when they're down, writing someone letters when they're going through tough times, sharing our testimonies when someone is struggling in the faith or having doubts, helping someone release some of their pressure by picking up some of their burden. These are all different ways that all of us can touch people for the positive. As we get older, we do lose certain opportunities that we had in the past. But let us be mindful that each day we also have new opportunities. Opportunities that we may not have had 20 years ago. Whether it's trying to lead one of our grandchildren to Christ. Whether it's building a solid relationship, friendship with someone that we may have just met a year ago. You know, compared to 20 years ago, many of us are more financially secure than we were, which means that we can do more good with what we have. My point is that new opportunities arrive as we age. So let's just not grieve over what we may have lost, but let's glorify God with the new opportunities that we have. When I was a child, I wanted to be a baseball player for the Cincinnati Reds. Nearly every day after school, I would throw tennis balls at my garage door. On my garage door. I wanted to be a home run hitting Ironman pitcher in my first at bat as a Cincinnati Red. I had it all planned out. I wanted to hit that first ball out of the stadium. And if you have known anything about the old Riverfront Stadium, balls didn't leave that stadium. So that would have been a huge accomplishment. I never made it in professional baseball. The truth is I wasn't that good to make any form of professional baseball. But that didn't matter because God called me into the ministry when I was 14 years old, and I never detoured from that plan. But I want to make it a point. If God said right now, Charles, I'll make a deal with you. I'll give you 10 years in the major leagues, but in return, it'll cost you the experience of participating in all the baptisms that you performed over the past 10 years. Would you take that deal? Do you agree to those terms? I would say no way. Absolutely not. Sometimes we need to realize that the lives that we live are a lot more fulfilling than the lives we may have dreamed up 10, 15 years ago. Life is filled with peaks, valleys, cliffs, forests and deserts, bright sunny days and thunderstorms. Life doesn't always turn out how we wished it would or how we thought it would. Sometimes with hindsight, we wonder why we didn't do something, such as being nicer to someone, being more forgiving, working harder at a certain job, being more diligent in school. Or why in the world did we not invest in Google, McDonald's, Procter & Gamble, and Apple? Why didn't we invest in that? And they were cheap. And the older we get, we can be tempted to look back and wonder, why didn't I do that? Or how could my plans have detoured like they did? Some of our lives may have been detoured by an illness or the illness of someone that we loved. Perhaps some of us were in the process of reaching our dreams. They were in our grasp, only to be betrayed by someone we loved. And we wonder why. Why did that person that I trusted betray me? This line of thinking is natural, but I must say if we do too much of it, it will sink us lower and lower into a quicksand of negativism. It will cause us to walk right into sandstorms of regret, which will blind us from experiencing and seeing and appreciating the joy of God, the love of God, the provisions of God, and the grace of God as available to us. Instead of thinking too much of lost opportunities or past failures or mistakes, or the way our lives could have ended up had we done something else, or had we said something else, I think we need to take the time to remember how much God has done in our lives and be thankful for the lives we have and how much He's done for us in the lives we have. Without God, I couldn't imagine how my life would be. I'd be miserable. It would be horrible. Without God, I wouldn't have the mother that I have. Without God, I wouldn't have the feeling of His love in my heart, or the empowerment of His Holy Spirit provides. Without God, I wouldn't have the peace that He offers. Without God, I wouldn't have the faith that my eternal destiny is in the hands of a loving God and that I will be saved one day. Without God, I wouldn't understand the importance of treating others with respect and love and kindness. Without God working in my life, I wouldn't understand how valuable I am and how valuable others are. See, we were all created in the image and likeness of God. God loves us so much that He died for us. Knowing this should cause all of us to have a huge self-esteem and should cause us to value others more. God has done so much for us. His fingerprints are all over each and every one of our lives. If we look for them, we will find them. I believe that we would be shocked if we actually realized how truly active and present God is in our lives. I believe that God is so much more active than we appreciate or realize. I think there's things that we take for granted, or how certain things seem to happen or play out that God's behind. We just don't realize or appreciate that it's God at work. I believe that we ever received a detailed list of how many times God took action in our lives, whether it be causing us to slow down to avoid a traffic accident, or causing us not to say certain hurtful things to someone we love, or whether it be convicting our hearts to act with courage when courage was needed. And we had a listing of every time God took action in our lives. I believe we would be shocked at how many times He acted. And we received such a detailed record of how many times God acted, there would not be enough paper in a huge library to record every detail. That's how active God is in our lives. The point is that our lives may not be where we once dreamed they would be at this point in our current age, but we should not be discouraged. God's always been at work in us, and He has each of us in a position, each of us, to make a significant difference for Him. He has each of us where we need to be in order to advance His kingdom here on earth, which should be our mission. Each of us are in a position to impact our families, our friends, our church, and our community. Some things in life don't work out, but our God is mighty, and wherever we are in life, He can use us to better this world, and He can better us. We must trust Him. Psalm 16, 1-2 begins, "Keep me safe, O God, for in You I take refuge. I said to the Lord, You are my Lord. Apart from You I have no good thing." Sometimes we complain about what we don't have, or maybe we may become envious about what our friends have, that our friends have something that we don't have. And in this weather, some of us may be envious that some of our friends have a snowblower and we may not. We must be grateful for what we have, because every positive thing in our lives, every positive thing in our lives, is the result of a loving God. The psalmist continues with this theme in verses 5 to 6. Lord, you have assigned me my portion of my cup. You have made my lot secure. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Surely I have a delightful inheritance. The psalmist is not grumbling about what he does not have. He's praising God out of complete gratitude for what he does have. Then the psalmist writes how God's always been present and active in his life. He writes in Psalm 16, 17, 11, I'll praise the Lord who counsels me. Even at night my heart instructs me. I've set the Lord before me because he's at my right hand. I would not be shaken. I repeat, because he's my right hand, I would not be shaken. Because he's my right hand, I will not be shaken. Therefore, my heart is glad and my tongue rejoices. My body will always rest secure, because you will not abandon me to the grave, nor will I let your Holy One see decay. You have made known to me the path of life. You will find me joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand. The psalmist knew that God had been and always will be active and present in his life, granting him wisdom, strength, and guidance. The psalmist knew that God had not abandoned him and never would abandon him, but quite the contrary, that God would continue to work through him. Many attribute this psalm to King David. Sure, King David was a king, and we think, well, he must have had it easy. He was a king. But his life was not short of pain. He would have had more peace had he followed Jesse, his father's footsteps, and been a shepherd. David was betrayed and chased around by King Saul, who wanted to kill him, a man who had mentored David. King Saul wanted to kill David. Then David witnessed the death of his firstborn son to Bathsheba because of something that David had done. On another occasion, King David had to suffer knowing that one of his daughters had been physically taken advantage of by one of his sons, and then one of his other sons, Absalom, killed the brother who took advantage of his daughter. And then, years later, Absalom declared war on David, and that war resulted in Absalom's death. All these deaths among his children. Talk about a life of pain and loss. Talk about a life that did not go as David had planned. Can you imagine how tough it was for him? But David persevered in his faith because he knew that God would not abandon him. God would not abandon David, and God does not abandon us. David knew that God would work at him, preparing him to meet the opportunities and challenges which lay ahead so he could impact the world for God. God's at work in us. Let us not be discouraged how certain things may not have gone how we wish they would have, or even how we planned they would have. Let us learn from our mistakes, but let us be focused on the future. God will not abandon us. Let us be open to God. Let us listen to God. And let us allow God to strengthen us so we will be up to the tasks which lay ahead. We don't know our future. That's a scary thought, but we don't know our future. But here's the thing. God does. God knows our future. And God knows what's next for us. And He is preparing us. He's preparing us to meet the future challenges and opportunities which will come across in our lives. Let us grow in our faith and allow God to build us into the men and women that He desires us to be. Let us rejoice in how God has been active and present in our lives and how much He has given to us. Let us not regret or beat ourselves up over lost opportunities. Instead, let us be focused on what God is trying to do in our lives right now. He is active and present. Let's be focused on what He's doing in our lives right now. Let us truly, and I mean truly, listen to Him. And let us find the courage to follow Him.
No prayer?